interview. Let's listen to none other than Mr. Bryan Cranston himself.
Bryan, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment podcast.
Mark, how are you?
I'm very good. And how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent.
Good to be here.
Now, we want to talk to Bryan the writer today, not Bryan the actor.
I'll go get him.
Okay, if you could, that'd be cool. Well, not many people know. Well, they'll know it if they've read your book. You've written a screenplay, and of course, you've written this book. This isn't just some ghost-written celebrity memoir. This is a passion project for you. Is that right?
Yeah, these are stories that I've been telling for a long time. A lot of them, certainly the ones from my childhood, and then as I go along, I realize what makes a good story is conflict. Any kind of type of occasion that you find yourself in confusion or doubt or anything that's seemingly negative or goes a bad way is eventually going to potentially make a good story. So I try to use that as a silver lining, that if there's a problem in your life, fear not, it could make a good story for you later on.
And were there any particular challenges or surprises when you were writing this book?
I can't really. I guess the biggest surprise was putting myself emotionally into that position again. Whenever I was writing a story that was particularly harrowing or fearful, I felt those feelings again. Because in order to truly translate what you're feeling emotionally to the written word, I think you need to submerge yourself in it as opposed to looking objectively at it and saying, oh, he was afraid. I wanted to feel it again and then to be able to convey that feeling.
So, Bryan, before our interview, I just popped onto Amazon and I looked up your book, A Life in Parts, and it has a big word next to it that you may or may not know. It had the big word bestseller. How does it feel to now be not just Emmy Award winner and Academy nominated Best Actor this year, but best-selling author? Is that a dream of yours?
It wasn't a dream. Just like when I've won awards in the past, I don't act to win awards, but they're always nice when someone acknowledges you. And so I didn't write the book to win an award. I didn't write it to make money, although I am being paid for it, but my agents would have to tell you how much I'm being paid for it. I don't really know. And as far as being a bestseller, yeah, I think it could translate to mean that the book is resonating, that people are finding it and recommending it, because you can't get on a New York Times bestseller list unless you've sold a lot of books, and that happens when people recommend it. In fact, I ask a lot of people in the book publishing business, what is the best way to sell a book? And they said, always, it's recommendations. When a friend says, you got to read this book. So very pleased.
Now, as an actor, you'll be used to working in an ensemble with the rest of your cast and crew. Writing is a very solitary experience. How were you able to cope with that?
I loved it. I loved it. You see, if I was a writer full time, you're agonizing over being alone because that's what you do. But my main profession is to be in the public eye. I'm on stage or I'm on a film set, and there's a lot of people around, and you go and promote movies, and it's a lot of hubbub and a lot of social interaction. And quite frankly, one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was to be able to still engage in creative endeavor and yet be alone. Take myself out of the public eye and be at a cabin or be at, a beach house and just let your mind soar and your imagination and be filled with inspiration to write, stories. And that's what happened. So it was great for me. The other thing was, it wasn't very intimidating because I wasn't writing from page 1 to page 275. It wasn't writing a novel. I was writing short stories from my life. So I already knew the genesis of the story, and I just needed to fill it out and put it down, documented on paper.
But of course, you have written a screenplay, and that's a very different experience in that you're accountable to a director and producers, financiers, and the actors. How was the experience? And that was a screenplay that you wrote from scratch, So how was the experience of that, and would you do it again anytime soon?
To write a book or a screenplay? Oh, I know. I enjoy writing. I enjoy telling stories. So whether you're acting or directing or writing, it's all related. It's all storytelling. And it's the joy. It's my professional joy. And I love doing it. So I want to experience all aspects of the storytelling process. I've written a few screenplays.
Okay.
And, it's very difficult to get them to a point where they're being optioned and actually being made. As I'm signing at the bookstore today, I'm signing books, and I almost guarantee you, and some woman came up and said, had a screenplay under her arm and said, "Can I leave you my screenplay?" And you can't.
Oh, Mark, you'll have to put that one the way you've got then, eh?
Yeah. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Put the screenplay away, Mark. Yeah. Is that what this is?
So, Bryan, with the experience of writing, have you ever been inspired? Because you mentioned in the book, which I absolutely love, by the way, I just have to say, I read it in 2 sittings, which I've got to say for me is pretty impressive because it usually takes me a long time to read anything. I was drawn in by the incredible stories. It made me laugh out loud. The chicken story was amazing. I really recommend people to read it just for that. But you also mentioned, a lot of very personal details about your life, and you talked about how your dad was a novelist, and he was always striving for this dream. Through that, have you ever had a desire to write a novel now, having gone through the process of writing a life story?
I am intrigued by the notion of writing a novel, and at some point, I'd like to take a crack at it to see. And again, like this book, I don't know if I'm really cut out for that. For instance, I did the narration, an Audible book, Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, about a reluctant soldier in Vietnam. And it was a book that I wanted to read. But I never got around to it until I was offered the job of narrating the book. And then I was able to read it. And I was a little saddened by that experience because it told me that, I don't permit myself the pleasure of simply reading a book. But if it's work-related, yes, you now have permission to go ahead and read it. And I was really disappointed that, my life has come to that I'm so governed by the work and trying to take advantage of the opportunities that I've been afforded and grateful for. And so I did that, and it was not easy for me to do that. I also did the narration for my own book, because I can't imagine some other actor saying my words. It was like, it seems odd. So I did the narration for my own book. But again, I had difficulty because you say a line of dialogue or a sentence from your book. I go, no, I heard I don't like the way I said that word. I need to go back. So it took me a long time to be able to get through it, much longer than a seasoned pro of doing narration would do. And out of that, I learned that I don't think I would do that again. I don't think I would do a narration of a book again, because it was not an easy, convenient, simple thing for me to do. I struggled a bit on it. And so I think there are others who can do it. So in that sense, to write a novel, it would be something I would like to try and see if it's if it works out.
Well, you should subscribe to our podcast, Bryan, because that's what we're challenging people to do. We're trying to write a novel within a year, and we're trying to inspire other people to do it. We're getting people like yourself on who've written, and do sign up and join.
So the two of you, are writing together.
Yeah.
Now, how often do you get together to?
Well, we have story meetings once a week over Skype, and then we'll be writing every day. We've been doing this for about 6 weeks now.
6 weeks.
We have an out.
Car crash of an idea.
Yeah. The thing is, I've written before. I've written a screenplay. Yeah. I've written a novel. Mark has never got beyond the 20,000 word mark.
Right.
So he's like, anything's possible. And I'm like, this is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
It's very hard. Yeah.
I'm completely naive. Actually, talking, Brian, about your book as well, we've actually got a short clip from your audiobook that we'd like to play now, which is fascinating because it leads us into the question of the importance of character. So we just